Another activist that became very popular, he's still very young, so you will hear his name much more in the future, I think, because he's still a per se activist. His name is Adam Adli. He's a university student at a time, per se 2 and 3 period. He also had this similar experience. At that time of per se, 2011-2012, student activism suddenly have a new energy. Student activism in Malaysia suddenly seems to receive new momentum during the per se period. And I asked him why. How come the student movement became seemingly like a sudden explosion of activity, right? And this Solidarity Mahasiswa Malaysia is the Federation of Independent University Student Society. So it's like a student union, a federation of the different independent student unions in the Malaysian university. This student movement, and to quote Adam Adli, right? I said, how do we explain suddenly in 2011-2012 student activism suddenly increased in such activity? They say, the students said, we saw the example of per se and we become inspired because per se was the first movement where it is not linked to any political party. It's independent civil society movement. So student movement also decided as a result of per se, we will not want to be influenced by political party. We will want to have an independent development of student movement. And he said that they connected with Berse, and Berse became the mindset of how they organized themselves at that period, 2011-2012. Later I will explain further this whole thing. Can civil society be totally independent from political party? That's a different question we can discuss further later. But by this point, just to say, student movement suddenly decide to be independent because they see the Berse movement was also independent in their direction. And at the same time, the students protested against what we call PT-PTM, right? PT-PTM in English is called the National Higher Education Fund Corporation. In 1996, in the time, like I said, the modernization period of Malaysia under Mahathir, higher education, university education become more privatized. So privatization became much more important policy in Malaysia, and higher education also saw increase of private university and also development of this education loan corporation. So in 1996, first time ever, government create this corporation to give loan for students to study in university. But by the time of Berse in 2012, this National Higher Education Fund has become a very controversial issue. So the student protests against this National Higher Education Fund, connecting with the Berse period. They organized this anti-education loan protest, making the connection with Berse, the Berse movement. Because, just to highlight what's the problem, right? According to the Auditor General, that means the Accounts General of the Malaysian budget system, by 2020, the year when Malaysia is supposed to be fully developed, there will be 43 billion ringgit of education, how to say, what's the deficit, means what people owe the corporation is 43 billion that is not paid back. So even according to some studies by the National University of Singapore, this model of funding higher education in Malaysia is not sustainable. And in case of any economic crisis, this 43 billion will basically, it will not be able to be reclaimed back by this National Education Corporation. So, just to explain why the students decided to protest against this is because of how oppressive they feel the education loan is on the lives of the students. So, because of the education issue, student movement, they make the articulation, I said the link, right, with the Gramsci movement. Student movement connected with Gramsci. And another point, Malaysia actually one of the highest private household debt in the world actually. That means private people taking loan to buy car, buy house, pay for education. In Malaysia, it's 90% of our national GDP is the size of the private debt. It's actually second in Asia, below South Korea. It shows, actually this term, I don't want to use big terms, but maybe just for the sake of this argument, you know, you hear about the term neoliberalization, right? When the economy become more privatized, when society become more financialized, Malaysia is very highly financialized society where 90% of the GDP is the amount of debt that private citizens actually owe. So, because of this education fund problem, they decide to occupy the Independence Square during Gramsci. Last person is this activist called Fahmi Reza. He is a independent graphic designer, very famous for doing political posters. Anyway, if you are Malaysian, he asked me to pass you some stickers like these ones.
这是他的其中一个作品。
So
上面写的是抢劫者。
He is a famous graphic designer and filmmaker and also activist. He made a very famous. Actually, you can find this movie. You want to understand more? It has Chinese translation. A famous film, documentary that he made called. It means 10 years before independence.
独立前10年。
Yeah. He wanted to do this film to deconstruct the official history of Malaysia, that say that Malay nationalism by the ruling party is the group that win independence for Malaysia. So this documentary deconstruct and to say that there are many other Malay groups and non-Malays who also fight for independence, but these groups are erased from the national history. So this movie, he interviewed all the activists in the people who are very old now, or some of them passed away, to recover the hidden history or alternative history of Malaysia's independence. So yeah, that's one of his major works. But the point I wanted to bring up about Fahmi is that he also said Gramsci really affected his life. Gramsci too, in 2011 he said, this is what as a graphic artist, this is how he rationalized. He said that the images, the pictures he saw in Gramsci, and the fact also that he also personally participated in the protest, he said the pictures from Gramsci was totally different from all previous protests in Malaysian history. And because of that, he decided to make a set of political posters to try to inspire more people to believe that protest is actually a natural part of Malaysian culture. Okay, let me put it this way. For a long time, Malaysians don't protest, okay? We are not a people who love to protest. Because precisely, it's like white terror. White terror, right? The time of white terror. Anyone protests, you can be politically detained with no court case, no trial. So Malaysians are not a people who love to protest by nature, right? But Fahmi Reza, he see his social role as someone to recover. Protest is a natural tradition of Malaysians. Basically, that's one of his so-called argument. So, for example, he makes certain posters, taking certain images from Gramsci and putting some slogan to try to inspire more young people to believe that, who says protest is not part of Malaysian identity? Protest started all the way to the 1940s when the people fight for independence. So this was a very famous picture of Gramsci where in front of the Pudu Raya, the most busy bus station in Kuala Lumpur, this street, the police with the red helmets, they have a blockade. And the people basically refuse to move. They all sit on the street. And I remember the day, because a lot of us were there also. It was a very memorable moment. Rain, and people refused to move. But of course, the police shoot tear gas, and people have to run and find their ways, right? But that was a powerful image that Fahmi Reza said, I want to create art that is inspired by Gramsci. Another picture. I will not say it. F here, let's dance, right? This picture, one of the Gramsci protesters, he kicked the tear gas that was shot by the police force. So this kind of image is not normal in Malaysia, but it happened in 2011. So Fahmi Reza decided to use these images to create a series of political posters. This was another one. The spirit of resistance is in the air. So he said that, try to recapture that when he saw Gramsci, he said, I saw a local emergence or the birth of local resistance experience, right? So in the past, Malaysians always say, protest, it's not normal here. Protest means European experience, right? Paris 1968, for example. Or protest, in Taiwan, for example, right? But we don't have our own local story. Let me put it this way, Gramsci give Malaysians our own local story, our own local identity, sense of identity that protest is part of our national culture, so to speak. This is again an example of what is articulation, right? Articulation is how you make connections with a certain political identity. So he said this. Gramsci to create this, everyone wants to do something spirit. Semangat is the Malay word spirit. And after Gramsci too, so many young people want to be involved in civil society. Before that, civil society was maybe some very experienced NGO people, politicians. Civil society dominated by this kind of people. But Gramsci to create the situation where anyone, people who are not professionals, NGO or professional human rights activists, anyone suddenly feel that they want to participate. That was the sort of like cultural change in the imagination of Malaysian society. So as a result of Gramsci too, Fahmi also started an initiative called Occupy Dataran. From July 2011 to April 2012, a group of people decide to meet every week in the Independence Square, like this, in the public space in the Independence Square, to have a kind of like they call it a public people's assembly. So anyone can come and you decide, imagine like ordinary people having a parliament or legislative discussion in the city square. So he tried to organize this kind of activist program, but they face many problems because they use the Independence Square, the City Hall, Kuala Lumpur City Hall, they say that you cannot use this space. So, actually in KL, there is no proper definition of what is public space. Public space meaning, we imagine, right, any public park, public city square, anyone can just get together, do any event, right? Have picnic, have play music. But because this group tried to have this political or even a citizens assembly, suddenly the city hall officers, they start to obstruct or refuse to give them permission to meet in the Independence Square, which revealed that actually KL, Kuala Lumpur have no public space because you cannot have that kind of gathering in the public spaces of Kuala Lumpur. So because of that problem with the Kuala Lumpur city administration, and just another background point, Malaysia, we don't have local city election. Okay, so like every city, like in Kaohsiung or Taipei, right? You all have a mayor election, right? You elect your mayor, you elect your city council. Malaysia, no elections at the city level. Because in 1963, they abolished the local election. Because they say it can be used by communists to destabilize the country. Or at that time also there was conflict between Malaysia and Indonesia. So they removed all this local election. So the problem now is that there's no local democracy. And one of the struggle of Occupy Dataran is that they reveal Malaysia have no local democracy. Yeah. So in the words of Fahmi, to explain, again I said how to use Stuart Hall or Gramsci's idea of articulation. Fahmi say, how does he connect Occupy, the group he started, with Gramsci too? He said that the objective to reclaim back public space, it begins when the city hall always stopped them from having those gatherings, those meetings. And what is the reason? The city hall, why they stopped them from meeting? They said they were afraid of this gathering of many people, but not just many people that they are afraid. The word here, macam-macam orang. Malay word means, what's the
any kind of person. You are a group.
Yeah. So they say the DBK scared because they see, Chinese, Malay, Indian, Pang, everyone gather one place. Suddenly the normal logic of Malaysian society is that Chinese normally, you have your friends is Chinese. Malay, you socially will hang out only with Malay. Indian people also hang out with your friends Indian. But the new Malaysia is very mixed, right? And suddenly the city hall feels it's very dangerous to let this kind of movement to grow, because it unites people across different, all kinds, macam-macam, very diverse. So they stop them from gathering in the Independence Square. So that's why in the process of every week they have to fight with the city hall, they gain consciousness that we need to fight for public space in Kuala Lumpur. Before that, there is no discussion about this lack of public space concept in Kuala Lumpur.